Ilara had just fallen asleep on my chest when my phone buzzed on the side table. I shifted slightly, careful not to wake her. The screen lit up with a message from Mom. I expected something bland and performative, maybe a reminder about the formula or a link to some European parenting article she thought I should consider. But instead, it was 6 words that split my world in two. "We're moving to Barcelona." I emptied the account. Good luck. I didn't move. Not for a full minute. My body went numb before my brain caught up. I opened the banking app and stared at the balance on the shared family fund, 0.20 hours. The same account we'd all contributed to Mom, Dad, and me for emergencies, shared care Bryony's recovery. They took every cent, not a forwarding number, not even a postscript. My breath hitched shallow and tight. Ilara stirred her tiny fingers curling near my collarbone. She was warm, trusting, and utterly unaware that 2 people she'd never remember had just made a decision that would shape her entire life. I pressed my lips to her forehead and whispered, "Thanks for the heads up." They hadn't even waited for the weekend to end. I was supposed to watch her while Bryony rested after her supposed breakdown in Berlin. No one said how long the arrangement was, or that it came with a disappearing act and financial sabotage. But then again, nothing with them ever came labeled clearly. I laid Ilara gently into the portable bassinet, her breath steady, her cheeks still pink with sleep. Then I stood and walked to the kitchen where I kept the paper files, the ones Mom always mocked me for printing. I pulled out the last bank statement. It had shown over $18,000 2 weeks ago. I tried calling them, of course. Straight to voicemail. I texted Bryony. Read no reply. My chest ached, not from panic, but from something heavier, recognition. Of course they'd do this. Of course I was the one they'd leave holding the child, the debt, the silence. The fridge buzzed softly behind me as I leaned against the counter and looked around. Bottles, diapers, her pink sleep sack still warm in the laundry basket. Everything that belonged to someone else, now mine, by default. By morning, I'd begin sorting out Ilara's schedule and look into legal guardianship. But for now, I just sat beside her and watched her sleep, the enormity of it all pressing against my ribs. Because deep down, I already knew they weren't coming back. Not for her, and not for me. The thing is, I shouldn't have been surprised. Being the reliable one starts so quietly, you don't even notice the leash forming. It's picking up Bryony from ballet because Mom is on a deadline even though I had a club meeting. It's folding Dad's shirts because Bryony gets distracted, and then watching her distraction turn into reward. I used to think I was being helpful. That being dependable made me valuable. But dependable turned into invisible. Bryony was all fire and drama tears in parking lots, poems left on napkins, a dozen half-finished majors before she settled on spiritual anthropology. People adored her because she was messy and luminous and impossible to hold accountable. My parents loved her like she was rare crystal even when she shattered everything in sight. Me, I was the shelf. They called the family fund a shared net. Contributions from Mom's side, hustle Dad's lecture, stipends my freelance gigs. It started after Bryony's second hospital stay, just in case someone else needed support. I remember that exact phrasing, someone else. Not Bryony, not again. Someone else. But I was never someone else. I was the backup system. The first time Bryony drained the account, it was for a retreat in the Catskills. Transformative, she called it. The second time, it was a failed move to Los Angeles to write a memoir she never started. They told me I shouldn't be so rigid about money, that Bryony was trying to become. Meanwhile, I patched gaps in my car insurance and skipped new glasses for 2 years. Now here we were. They'd left me with her daughter, emptied the account, and moved to Barcelona like it was an overdue sabbatical. The silence after that text wasn't just cruelty, it was clarity. They'd never intended to come back. Not to help, not to answer, not even to check. I sat on the couch, the room dim around me, Ilara softly cooing in her sleep. I remembered the last time my mother had visited this apartment. She'd frowned at my chipped mug and said, "You still don't have matching dishes." She didn't comment on the handmade tiles I'd installed in the bathroom or the framed photos I'd restored for the Historical Society. Just the dishes. Of course she left without saying goodbye. That's who she always was. That's who they all were. I was the quiet daughter, the stable one. And stable people don't need warning. But Alara would. She would need more than they ever gave. And I was the only one left to figure out how to give it. By day 4, my body had learned to function in 2-hour fragments. Ilara's sleep patterns were an unpredictable math problem. 3 naps of 40 minutes, or 1 long cry from 2 to 4 in the morning. Her lungs were impressive. My nerves were sanded down. I worked in flashes editing footnotes for a regional history journal while she napped on a folded towel beside my laptop. The client had emailed twice about the deadline. I lied and said the delay was due to a family emergency, which felt absurdly mild. Every bottle was a negotiation. Every diaper a scramble. I bounced her until my arms ached, then rocked her with podcasts in my earbuds just to stay awake. There were moments, short ones, where she'd smile at me, gums showing, and it felt like oxygen. Then she'd scream again, and I'd feel like I was vanishing into the wallpaper. Friends sent check-ins, texts, a meme here or there. Nobody showed up. I called Bryony twice, left 1 voicemail. I even typed out a 3rd message asking her point blank when she was coming back. I didn't send it. What was the point? On Thursday morning, after a night of pacing the floor with Alara strapped to my chest while she screamed into my collarbone, I opened the door to get the mail and found a small Tupperware on the stoop. Still warm. A note written in tiny cursive, "You're doing more than enough." A. I looked across the hall. Mrs. Arliss's curtains twitched just slightly. She was retired, lived alone, read mystery novels with the windows open. We'd only spoken once before about trash pickup. Later that afternoon, she knocked once lightly and handed me a folded quilt. "I made it for the wrong-sized bed," she said, voice, even as if this were a business transaction. I thanked her. She didn't ask to come in. She didn't stay. It was the first time someone saw me in days. That night, I sat in the glow of the kitchen light holding Alara with one hand and spooning reheated stew with the other. My arms were tired, my chest heavier than hunger could explain. But for the first time all week, I didn't feel entirely alone. The next morning, I went looking for the old folder where my parents kept legal documents. I hadn't set foot in my parents' house since the day they left. It still smelled like lemon wood polish and overconfidence. I told myself I was just there to grab the last container of baby formula, or maybe find an old bassinet tucked in the attic, but I knew what I was really looking for: answers, or proof. Ilara dozed in the carrier strapped to my chest as I moved through the kitchen opening drawers with slow fingers. The fridge was empty except for a jar of imported fig jam and half a bottle of Prosecco. The cabinets were clean, too sterile in that way. Only people who don't plan to return leave them. In the bottom drawer beneath the junk mail pile and broken corkscrew, I found a worn green folder labeled Spain. Inside were printed travel itineraries going back 6 months. Flights, apartment lease, and Barcelona international SIM cards already activated. It wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't emotional. It was orchestrated. Behind the itineraries was a notarized form. My name, my address. My signature copied from an old lease, I realized. Power of attorney for Alara Quinn, age 6 months, transferred to me indefinitely. I pressed my thumb to the paper, trying to understand the depth of it. They had made me her legal guardian without ever asking, without a conversation, without even pretending I had a choice. Tucked into the back of the folder was a printed bank statement. The family account dated 2 weeks before they vanished. A withdrawal, $21,600. Destination, Meridian Trust, Private International Division. Not even a U.S. bank. They moved the money offshore. I sat at their kitchen table, the same table where they'd once hosted faculty dinners, and corrected my posture and stared at the numbers. I should have been furious. I should have wanted to break something, but all I felt was stillness. This wasn't a mistake. It was a trade. They chose freedom, and they offered me Alara as the excuse. A pan on the counter still had the price tag from a boutique in Portland, $240. They'd left that behind, too. I folded the documents and placed them in my bag. Then I looked around the room one more time, as if expecting to find their voices echoing off the walls. but it was quiet, and the quiet didn't apologize. Back home, I laid Alara down, opened my laptop, and searched how to file for emergency guardianship in Virginia. I expected the legal aid office to be sterile and overworked. In some ways, it was. The waiting area buzzed with fluorescent lights, and the receptionist barely looked up from her keyboard. But when Ephraim Rhodes stepped into the room, tie slightly crooked sleeves rolled, he greeted me like I was a person, not a case file. That alone nearly broke me. I showed him the documents I'd found, the power of attorney, the bank statement, the printed itineraries. He read through them slowly, tapping the pages once before he spoke. "They didn't notify you?" he asked. "No, they just left." He nodded, jaw tight. "Then this isn't just a guardianship transfer. It's potential financial abandonment, maybe even fraud depending on how the funds were classified." He explained that while the power of attorney was technically legal, the deception around it wasn't. If we could show they intended to offload responsibility without consent or knowingly misused shared funds, we had ground to challenge both the custody arrangement and the money trail. I asked what the process looked like. He said it would be slow, tedious uphill. I said I'd already been up all night for weeks. What's one more climb? That afternoon, I began cataloging everything: receipts, screenshots, Bryony's old texts asking me to help out for the weekend, and my mom's message about the money. I compiled a spreadsheet. I printed copies and labeled them. It felt obsessive, but also like I was building something one page at a time. 2 days later, Bryony finally called. I almost didn't answer, but I wanted her voice on the record. "Danica," she said, her tone clipped. "You agreed to this." "No, I didn't. You said you'd help. For a weekend. Not indefinitely." There was silence on the line, and then a laugh, dry, condescending. "You always dramatize everything." I hit record on my second phone. "You think they abandoned you? Grow up. They're done carrying you." I nearly dropped the phone. I steadied my voice. "They weren't carrying me. They were hiding behind me." "You're being ridiculous," she snapped. "It's done. You're not going to scare us with legal threats." I didn't say anything. I let the quiet fill the space. She hung up. I labeled the recording and backed it up twice. That night, Alara had a mild fever. I held her against my chest, her breath hot and uneven, and watched the ceiling pulse with the streetlight outside. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel vindicated. But I wasn't afraid of them anymore. The next morning, I called Ephraim and told him I had something he needed to hear. The message came on a Sunday morning, just as I was warming a bottle. "We're flying back. We want to see Alara." No apology, no explanation. Just a declaration like they were returning to claim a suitcase they'd forgotten. I didn't reply. 3 days later, they showed up at my door, Sandra in her expensive scarf Talbot with sunglasses perched on his head like a crown. They looked tan and rested the kind of rested only people without responsibilities ever managed to be. I opened the door just wide enough to let their intentions hit the threshold and stop there. "You look tired," Sandra said, brushing past me. "Still working that part-time job?" Talbot followed, arms crossed, eyes already scanning the apartment. "We were surprised you didn't reach out sooner. Thought you'd have questions. But I guess not everyone's cut out for parenting." I didn't answer. I let them talk. Sandra walked to Alara, who was seated in her high chair, gumming a piece of banana. She clicked her tongue disapprovingly. "Her posture's off. You really should be doing tummy time more consistently." I turned to face them fully. I filed for full custody 3 weeks ago. They froze. And I submitted documentation of the bank transfers, the forged power of attorney, and your failure to notify me of intent to leave the country. I also have recorded calls with Bryony confirming I never agreed to long-term guardianship. Talbot's jaw shifted. "Danica, there's no need to escalate." Sandra took a step forward. "Let's not make this ugly." "It's already ugly," I said. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Sandra's expression hardened, her eyes sharp with the kind of cold calculation I'd grown up watching. Talbot sighed, performing disappointment like it was a rehearsed monologue. "I think it's best we leave," he muttered. I nodded and opened the door. Sandra turned back as she walked out. "You've always had a flair for melodrama. I just didn't think you'd drag a baby into it." I didn't respond. I didn't flinch. I closed the door gently, turned the lock, and exhaled. Ilara dropped her banana on the floor and clapped her hands. That afternoon, Ephraim called to confirm our court date had been moved up. The courtroom smelled like dust and wood polish, and everything felt too bright. Ephraim walked with quiet certainty, holding our binder like it was gospel. I sat beside him, hands folded, watching the judge's eyes more than my parents'. Sandra and Talbot arrived 10 minutes late. Bryony never showed. Ephraim began with the timeline. He presented the notarized documents, the travel plans dated months in advance, the account statements showing the funds drained and transferred offshore. Then he brought out the recordings, Bryony's voice dismissive and cold, confirming I had never agreed to guardianship. He handed the judge a printed transcript. Sandra cleared her throat a few times. Talbot smirked now and then. They didn't deny the evidence. They tried to reframe it. "My daughter is prone to exaggeration," Sandra said smoothly. "She's under a lot of stress. Caring for a child, especially one that isn't hers, is bound to bring up emotion." The judge didn't blink. "I've reviewed the documentation," she said, her voice level. "What concerns me is not just the abandonment but the strategic nature of the transfer. Ms. Quinn was misled and left without support both financially and emotionally." She paused, looked directly at my parents. "I'm granting full legal custody to Ms. Quinn. The offshore account will be frozen pending review. Any visitation from Sandra or Talbot Quinn must be supervised and approved in advance." Sandra opened her mouth. The judge raised a hand. "We're done here." Outside, the wind had picked up. Sandra stopped me by the courthouse steps. "You were always jealous of Bryony," she said, voice low and sharp. "Even as a child. You just waited for a way to punish us for loving her more." I looked at her but said nothing. She turned heels, clicking Talbot following behind without a word. I walked to the parking lot where Ilara was waiting with Mrs. Arliss, who'd come without being asked. The baby giggled when she saw me, arms outstretched. That night, as I rocked her to sleep, I realized I hadn't felt relief. Just an odd, hollow stillness, like the end of a very long echo. The next morning, I opened my email and saw a message from Ephraim marked urgent. The kiln hums quietly now, steady and warm. I keep it running low most mornings while Ilara plays on the quilted mat a few feet away. The cradle I built from old pine slats sits near the shelf of finished bowls. She naps there sometimes, fingers curled around a fabric doll Mrs. Arliss stitched by hand. My hands are back in clay. The wheel spins again. I open the studio 2 days a week, 3 when Ilara's feeling settled. Orders are slow but steady. The local cafe restocked their mug shelf with my pieces last month, and a college student wants a custom set for her thesis exhibit. I take what I can, and I let the rest go. Mrs. Arliss comes by every Friday with oatmeal cookies wrapped in wax paper. She never stays long, just a check-in and a soft squeeze of my arm before she disappears down the sidewalk. Her presence is its own kind of healing quiet, dependable, the opposite of what I was raised to expect from adults. Sometimes I still wake up expecting a new message, some fresh twist in the saga, but it's been months and the silence has settled into something I can live with. The legal follow-ups are mostly done. The account is still frozen. There's no word from Bryony. I've stopped waiting. Last week, Ilara took her first steps between the work table and the door. She fell after the third one, then laughed like it was a game. I laughed too, and then cried alone in the kitchen after she went to sleep, not because I was sad, but because I was the one who saw it. I wrote Bryony a letter yesterday, not out of obligation, just to close a loop. I didn't say much. Ilara is safe, I wrote. That's all that matters. I didn't include a return address. This morning, as I opened the studio and set my fingers into the damp clay, I looked at the small cradle beside me, the tiny bowl Ilara had dented with her thumbprint, the faint streaks of flour on the floor from yesterday's toddler baking attempt. I was left behind so they could escape. But I stayed and built something better.
I sit at the edge of my parents' polished oak table, smoothing the wrinkles from my simple black dress. The fabric cost more than I should have spent, but tonight, I needed the armor of dignity. Around me, crystal glasses catch light from the chandelier, as my father fills them with wine that probably cost what I spend on groceries for a week. To Sam's incredible win, Dad raises his glass, beaming at my sister. Youngest attorney in the firm's history to win a case of this magnitude. My mother reaches across the table to squeeze Sam's hand. We always knew you were destined for greatness. Sam glows under their attention, her perfectly highlighted hair falling just so as she modestly lowers her eyes. It was just good preparation, really. And natural talent, Mom adds quickly. Don't downplay your gifts. I take a small sip of water, gathering courage. The article I read about the case mentioned how you connected with the jury. That emotional intelligence is so valuable in... Did you tell them about the judge's comments? Dad interrupts, not even glancing my way. Samantha, tell them what he said afterward. My words evaporate like morning dew. I've been here a dozen times before this familiar ritual where Sam shines while I fade into the wallpaper. I focus on my breathing, on the weight of the fork in my hand, anything to ground myself as the conversation flows around me. Kylie, pass the potatoes, Mom says, the first time she's addressed me directly in 20 minutes. I comply, then venture another attempt. My department is implementing a new compliance system that I helped design. Did I mention Sam's firm is considering her for a junior partner? Mom cuts in, her voice lifting with pride. At 32, can you imagine? My throat tightens. I'm 29, 3 years younger than my brilliant sister, but somehow, I'm always decades behind in their eyes. Mom turns to me suddenly with that look, the one that precedes her helpful suggestions about my life. You know, if you'd finished that MBA instead of just your bachelor's, you might be further along by now. The MBA I postponed when they called sobbing about the foreclosure notice. The degree that's still sitting in the someday file while my savings account empties month after month. I'm doing fine, I manage. Mom sighs, exchanging glances with Dad. Fine isn't exceptional though, is it? She sets down her fork with precision. Honestly, Kylie, you're not even half the woman your sister is. The dining room goes silent. Even the antique clock on the mantel seems to pause its ticking. My hand trembles around my water glass, ripples forming on the surface. I can hear my heartbeat in my ears, feel heat crawling up my neck. The words slam into me like a physical blow, stealing my breath. The clock resumes its steady rhythm. Tick, tick, tick. In that moment, something shifts inside me. 4 years of silence, 4 years of sacrifice, 4 years of invisibility. Then let her pay the mortgage for this house, I say quietly. The words hang in the air like smoke. Dad's fork clatters against his plate. Mortgage? What mortgage? Sam's champagne glass freezes halfway to her lips, her expression suddenly uncertain. Mom's face drains of color so quickly I worry she might faint. Kylie, this is hardly dinner conversation. Who wants dessert? I made your favorite apple. No. The strength in my voice surprises even me. I pull my phone from my purse, fingers trembling as I open my banking app. What are you talking about? Dad blusters, his confident facade cracking slightly. We refinanced years ago. I scroll through my transaction history, finding the first payment from 4 years ago. I turn the screen toward them. February 15th, 2021. $2,500 to prevent foreclosure. Just this once, you said. Mom stands abruptly. This is ridiculous. I'm getting dessert. March, April, May. I continued, scrolling through the evidence. Every month for 4 years. Between $1,200 and $2,400, depending on what crisis came up. Clyde. Dad's face hardens. We've had some temporary setbacks in the business. You know that. Temporary? 4 years isn't temporary. I turn to Sam, whose confusion is morphing into horror. Did you know? Did you know that while you were buying your condo and getting promotions, I was keeping our parents from losing their house? Sam slowly shakes her head. They told me they were helping you financially, that you were struggling. A bitter laugh escapes me. Is that what they told you? A daughter supports her family, Mom says tearfully, returning without dessert. That's how we raised you. Family comes first, always. Family comes first, I repeat hollowly. But I'm not really family, am I? I'm an ATM. The backup plan, the safety net you never acknowledge. The realization washes over me with startling clarity. All those years of trying to measure up, of accepting less, of making myself smaller to fit into the box they'd built for me, and for what? So they could drain me dry while praising my sister for achievements that my sacrifice helped make possible? Sam sets down her glass carefully. How much, Kylie? Total? I meet her eyes directly. $84,000. Dad chokes on his wine. That's preposterous. But his protest lacks conviction. He knows. They all know now. My down payment for a home, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. My MBA, my future. The dining room falls silent again. But this time, the silence feels different. Heavy with truth. With secrets exposed to oxygen for the first time. And somewhere beneath the anger and hurt, I feel something else unfurling. Freedom. Back at my apartment that night, memories flash back as lightning. The phone rings at 11:37 on a Tuesday night. I nearly ignored it, already half asleep under my IKEA comforter in my rented one-bedroom, but something intuition or anxiety makes me reach for it. Kylie? Mom's voice breaks on my name, thick with tears. I didn't know who else to call. I sit up, suddenly wide awake. What's wrong? Is someone hurt? The house. A muffled sob. We're going to lose the house. We're going to lose the house. The next minutes blur as she explains through hiccuping breaths about missed mortgage payments, about Dad's struggling architectural firm, about the foreclosure notice that arrived today. Words like 30 days and auction steps punctuate her sobs. How much? I ask, already opening my laptop, navigating to my bank account. The screen glows harshly in my dark bedroom, illuminating the savings I've accumulated over 3 years of overtime and brown bag lunches. My down payment fund for a modest Denver condo, $2,500, she whispers, just to stop the foreclosure process. Charles swears the Brewster contract is coming through next month. She pauses. Honey, I wouldn't ask, but we have nowhere else to turn. My cursor hovers over the transfer button. The colonial-style house on Maple Street has been their home for 30 years. My childhood bedroom with the window seat. The oak tree I fell from at 8, breaking my arm. The dining room, where we gathered every Sunday for pot roast and potatoes. Just this once. Mom promises. Your father is mortified that I even called you. We'll pay you back the minute his commission clears. My finger clicks the mouse. $2,500 vanishes from my account, numbers shifting downward like an elevator in free fall. Thank you, sweetheart. Mom says, relief washing her voice clean of tears. We raised such a good girl. Dad gets on the phone briefly. Won't happen again, Kylie Bear. Just a tough month. His voice carries the forced heartiness I recognize from childhood. Disappointments, promised trips to the zoo canceled, Christmas bikes that never materialized. I stare at my account balance long after we hang up. The hollowness in my stomach has nothing to do with hunger. Just this once. 3 weeks later, Mom calls again. The bank made a mistake with the payment processing. Her voice carries a different note now, less desperate, more expectant. Just $1,200 this time. I transfer the money. A month passes. Your father's client is late paying, but the business will bounce back. Another transfer. By the 6th month, I've stopped waiting for the explanations to change. I've stopped expecting repayment. I set up an automatic transfer $1,500 monthly, directly to their mortgage company. It's easier than the phone calls, the tearful gratitude, the promises. My email notification pings on a Wednesday afternoon at work. Denver downtown condo development, pre-sale opportunity. I open it during my lunch break. Scrolling through images of the exact starter home I've been saving for walking distance to work, in my price range, available with just 10% down. I check my savings account. After 6 months of transfers, I'm back where I started 3 years ago. The condo units sell out in 48 hours. That night, I deferred my MBA program acceptance for the 2nd time. Financial circumstances. I write on the form. The university will hold my spot for 1 more year, they tell me. After that, I'll need to reapply. I created a spreadsheet. Columns for dates, amounts, running total. A separate tab for opportunities declined. Condo, education, the trip to Spain for my college roommate's wedding. My stomach clenches as the numbers grow. 6 months becomes a year. A year becomes 2. On my lunch break, I microwave ramen noodles in the office kitchen. My phone buzzes with an Instagram notification. Mom at Marcello's, the upscale Italian place downtown, captioned anniversary dinner. Blessed. Dad's new golf clubs lean against their dining room wall in the background of another photo the following week. Can't make it this weekend. I text my friends who are planning a short camping trip. Tight on cash this month, the 3rd such excuse this summer. They stop asking eventually. The credit card application rejection arrives via email. Insufficient credit history and current income to debt ratio does not meet our requirements. The same day, Sam posts photos of her condo closing. Homeowner at last. Adulting. The comments overflow with family congratulations. Your sister always had such a good head on her shoulders. Mom tells me at Easter dinner, while I sit quietly, calculating how many more months of payments until I can restart my MBA fund. Financial independence is a sign of maturity. I nod, swallowing both the irony and the instant mashed potatoes. At the office holiday party, Jessica from accounting slides into the chair beside me. You okay? You've been brown bagging it for months. Her eyes, kind behind tortoiseshell glasses, hold genuine concern rather than pity. Just saving, I say, the lie automatic by now. She studies me over her glass of cheap Chardonnay. For what exactly? Because you never actually seem to buy anything. Something in her direct gaze breaks through my practiced deflections. Over after-work coffee that turns into dinner, the story spills out 4 years, $84,000, the endless cycle of obligation. Jessica sets down her mug with a decisive click against the table. Kylie, you can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. They're my parents. I say, but the words lack conviction. And you're their daughter, not their bank. She pulls a napkin toward her, uncaps a pen. Let's do some math. We calculate the true cost. Not just dollars, but compound interest lost, career advancement delayed, retirement contributions missed. The final sum makes my hands shake. They wouldn't understand, I whisper. Maybe not, Jessica agrees. But do you understand what you're giving up? That night, I stare at my bank app, thumb hovering over the automatic transfer. 4 years, $84,000. My finger trembles, not yet ready to press cancel, but for the first time, I can imagine doing so. Just this once, I think. I could skip just this once, see if they notice, see if they care. I press my thumb against the cool glass of my phone screen and close my eyes. When I open them, the transfer confirmation stares back at me. 1 more month of setting myself on fire. But something has shifted. In the reflection of my darkened phone screen, I catch a glimpse of determination in my own eyes that wasn't there before. As I didn't sleep after this terrible dinner, the bank app glows on my phone screen at 5:48 a.m. on Monday morning. I haven't slept. My thumb hovers over the cancel automatic transfer button as sunlight begins to peek through my apartment blinds. For 4 years, I've transferred between $1,200 and $2,400 each month to my parents' account, money that should have built my future. $84,000. A down payment on a Denver condo when prices were reasonable. The MBA, I kept deferring. A retirement fund with years of compound interest. All sacrificed to pay a mortgage that wasn't mine, for a house I don't live in, owned by people who last night said I wasn't even half the woman my sister islanded. My finger trembles as I press the button. Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring transfer? Am I? I press confirm. My stomach lurches like I've jumped from a diving board, but instead of water, I'm falling into freedom. The sensation is so foreign, I nearly reach for the trash can beside my bed. But beneath the nausea, something else blooms, relief so profound my body sags against the headboard. For the first time in 4 years, my next paycheck belongs entirely to me. The first call comes before I've finished my morning coffee. Dad's name flashes on my screen. I let it go to voicemail. Kylie. His voice is granite and gravel. What you did last night was inexcusable. We've supported you your entire life, and this is how you repay us? By abandoning your family when we need you most? Call me back. Immediately. I delete the message and block his number. By noon, Mom has left 4 messages, each more tearful than the last. By 3 p.m., I've blocked her too. Sam texts, they say you're punishing them. What's happening? They won't stop calling me. I type back, ask them about the mortgage payments I've been making for 4 years. 3 dots appear, disappear, reappear. Finally, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. The doorbell rings at 6:14 p.m. Through the peephole, I see my mother clutching a photo album to her chest. I press my forehead against the door, willing her to leave. Kylie, honey, I know you're in there. Her voice carries through the wood. I brought pictures from when you were little. Remember how we were always there for you? Remember your first ballet recital when you fell and your father carried you off stage? What I remember is working 3 jobs in college while Sam's tuition was paid in full. What I remember is postponing grad school to help with their temporary financial setback that somehow lasted 4 years. I don't open the door. By morning, my aunt in Phoenix has called to express concern about your poor parents. My uncle in Michigan emails about family responsibility. Cousins I haven't spoken to in years suddenly need to check on me. The family mobilization is impressive in its coordination. They're good, Jessica says over coffee at the shop across from our office. She's the first friend I've confided in about the full situation. I've got to hand it to them, they've got the flying monkeys out in force. Flying monkeys? From Wizard of Oz. The Wicked Witch sends them to do her dirty work. She stirs her latte. It's a classic manipulation tactic. When the direct approach fails, enlist others to apply pressure. I've known Jessica for 3 years, but at this moment, she feels like the first person who's truly seen me. I made an appointment with a financial advisor. I told her, tomorrow morning. She reaches across the table to squeeze my hand. I'm proud of you. The financial advisor's office smells like leather and lemon polish the next day. Martha adjusts her glasses as she reviews my statements. $84,000 over 4 years. She sets down her tablet. And they never disclosed this to your sister or acknowledged it publicly? No. And you had no legal obligation to pay their mortgage? No. Then what you've experienced is financial exploitation. She leans forward, voice firm. Family exploitation is still exploitation, Kylie. Hearing someone in authority name it sends a shiver down my spine. I've been exploited. Not helped, not supported, my family exploited. Let's make a personal budget, Martha says, one that prioritizes your future. When she shows me the projection of where I could be in 5 years without the drain of my parents' mortgage, tears spring to my eyes. College funds for future children. Retirement contributions that actually match my company's offering. A down payment fund that grows instead of depleting monthly. This is what financial health looks like, Martha says gently. The next morning, I opened my first investment account with the $1,400 I would have transferred to my parents. The act feels like planting a flag on distant territory. This money is mine. This future is mine. That afternoon, I enrolled in the graduate course I've deferred for 7 consecutive semesters. Welcome back, Miss Anderson, the admissions counselor says. We've held your spot. 3 weeks have passed. The calls from extended family taper off. Sam texts occasionally, careful, neutral messages that skirt the edge of our family's new reality. My parents alternate between radio silence and escalating attempts at contact. I've rehearsed what I'll say when I finally speak to them. Jessica helps me craft the script, and I practice in front of my bathroom mirror. I love you, but your mortgage is not my responsibility. Simple, direct, unassailable. The knock comes on a Sunday evening. As I'm reviewing case studies for my first graduate class, no peephole check is necessary. I know who it is by the cadence of the knock, 3 sharp raps. My father's signature. I open the door to find both parents standing in the hallway. Mom's eyes are red-rimmed. Dad's jaw is set in the rigid line that always preceded childhood punishments. This has gone on long enough, he says, pushing past me into the apartment. You've made your point. My mother follows, her hand reaching for mine. I step back. Your behavior is destroying this family. Dad continues, pacing my small living room. Do you have any idea what people are saying? Your Aunt Margaret asked if you were having some kind of breakdown? Charles, Mom murmurs, a caution in her voice. No, Elaine, she needs to hear this. He turns to face me. You've embarrassed us. You've created a family crisis over a little financial help that any daughter would provide without question. $84,000 is not a little help, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. You're killing me with this betrayal, Mom whispers, tears spilling down her cheeks. After everything we've done for you. The rehearsed script evaporates. In its place rises something raw and real and entirely mine. I love you both, I say. But your mortgage is not my responsibility. It never was. My father's face flushes crimson. So that's it? You're just abandoning us? I'm not abandoning you. I'm stopping the abandonment of myself. The words hang in the air between us, undeniable in their truth. They leave 7 minutes later, my mother sobbing, my father rigid with fury. As the door closes behind them, my knees give way. I slide to the floor, tears streaming down my face, my body shaking with sobs that feel ripped from somewhere primal. But beneath the grief runs a current of something unexpected lightness. As if heavy stones have been lifted from my pockets after years of carrying their weight. That night, I slept 8 uninterrupted hours for the first time in 4 years. When morning comes, I stand at my window watching the sun illuminate the city. Denver spreads before me, familiar yet somehow new, a landscape of possibility rather than obligation. For the first time since that late-night call 4 years ago when my parents' desperation became my burden, I feel the contours of my own life taking shape. I am not half of anyone. I am whole. I wake up to sunlight streaming through curtains I actually chose. 6 months ago, I'd have been checking my bank app first thing, calculating how much I could spend on coffee after the automatic transfer to my parents' account cleared. Today, I stretch luxuriously and smile at the ceiling. My rules, my money. The promotion notification had appeared in my inbox yesterday afternoon. Project team lead. The words still don't feel real. Your dedication and analytical skills make you the perfect candidate, my boss had said, actually looking me in the eye. The whole department recognizes your contributions, Kylie. If they're ba and diddy. Recognition. The word settles in my chest like a warm stone. I pull on running shoes and head out for my morning jog, nodding to Mrs. Winters walking her corgi. She waves enthusiastically. Big day for your Italian cooking class, right? The final dinner. Lasagna from scratch, I called back. I'll bring you leftovers. 6 months ago, I wouldn't have known my neighbor's name, wouldn't have signed up for community center classes, wouldn't have had the money for ingredients beyond ramen and peanut butter. My phone buzzes in my pocket. Jessica from work. The hiking group's meeting at Boulder Creek Saturday, she says when I answer. You in? Absolutely, I reply, thinking of the new boots I bought myself last month. The Rockies have become my sanctuary, the vastness putting my family drama into perspective. Last weekend, I stood on a summit and screamed into the wind until my throat burned and something inside me loosened. When I return to my apartment, there's an envelope in my mailbox. Thick, official looking. I open it standing right there in the lobby, my heart hammering as I unfold the letter. Dear Miss Anderson, we are pleased to inform you of your acceptance. I press the letter to my chest, vision blurring. Graduate program. The one I deferred 4 years ago when that first desperate call came from my parents. My phone rings again. My Aunt Gloria this time. Your father asked me to call you, she begins, her voice apologetic. He says the doctor is worried about his blood pressure, the stress of possible foreclosure. The mortgage is current through next month, I interrupt, having checked their account status online. I'm sorry about his health concerns, but I can't help anymore. Aunt Gloria sighs. He mentioned there might be some misunderstanding about family obligations. No misunderstanding, I say firmly. I love you, Aunt Gloria. Tell Dad I wish him well. I hung up and checked Facebook. Mom's latest post appears at the top of my feed. Heartbroken, when children abandon parents who sacrificed everything for them. Family should be forever. 17 sympathetic comments from relatives who don't know the whole story. I close the app without responding and turn to my email. Sam has sent a tentative message. They're saying some worrying things about money. Are they really facing foreclosure? I'm confused about what's happening. I type back. They have options they're unwilling to consider. I'm happy to explain everything if you want to hear my side. Before I can overthink it, I send the email and head to the shower. Work awaits, and today I'm leading the morning briefing on our new compliance system, my system, the one I designed. The meeting room falls silent when I walk in. 6 months ago, I'd have assumed it was dismissal. Today, I recognize respect. The implementation numbers are impressive, says Thomas, our director. Kylie's design has reduced processing time by 32%. My colleagues applaud. Not polite golf claps, but genuine appreciation. I stand straighter and begin my presentation with confidence I'd never have recognized in myself before. That afternoon, my desk phone rings with an unfamiliar number. Kylie Anderson? This is Marissa Johnson, with Parker Executive Search. I'm calling about a director position in Seattle. I nearly dropped the phone. I'm sorry? Your name was recommended by someone who was very impressed with your compliance system design. The position is with Westlake Financial Technologies. Would you be interested in discussing it? My mouth goes dry. Seattle? 45% salary increase from your current position, plus equity. I scribble the number on a post-it, promise to call back, and sit stunned at my desk. Seattle. 3 states away from the magnetic pull of familial obligation. A director position leapfrogging 2 management levels. That evening, I opened my laptop and requested a virtual tour of apartments in Seattle. The realtor shows me a 14th floor unit, with floor-to-ceiling windows. The Space Needle gleams in the distance. What's the price range? I ask cautiously. She names a figure that, 6 months ago, would have been impossible. But now, with no mortgage payments draining my account. I pull up a spreadsheet and calculate quickly. 2 years of the offered Seattle salary would equal 4 years of what I'd paid toward my parents' mortgage. The phone rings. Sam, I talked to Dad, she says. He admitted everything. 4 years of you paying their mortgage while they told me you were struggling and they were helping you. Her voice breaks. They took advantage of you, Kylie. I'm so sorry I didn't see it. Something shifts inside me, the last piece of a puzzle clicking into place. It's not your fault. Are you really considering Seattle? She asks. Mom and Dad heard through the grapevine. They're furious you didn't tell them first. I laugh softly. Seattle feels right. I'm ready for something bigger than myself. That weekend, I began packing my Denver apartment. Each item goes through a simple test. Does this serve my future, or anchor me to the past? The pile for donation grows larger than the pile to keep. My phone pings with a text from the Seattle company. The contract is ready for electronic signature. Benefits begin on day 1. Relocation assistance included. I look around my half-packed apartment, at the graduate program acceptance letter on my fridge, at the hiking boots by the door. For the first time in my adult life, everything I own represents choices I made for myself. I signed the contract. A month after signing the contract, I stand at the panoramic window of my Seattle condo, watching dawn paint Mount Rainier in hues of amber and rose. 14 floors above the city, I've built a life where I matter, where my voice carries weight. My phone buzzes on the granite countertop. Another text from Mom about how they're managing without my support. I ignore it, sipping coffee that costs more than I would have allowed myself in Denver. Small luxuries no longer trigger guilt. The second buzz isn't from my parents. It's Grace, my former neighbor in Denver. Thought you should see this. Sorry. I tap the attachment. The image loads slowly, pixel by pixel, as if my phone is trying to protect me from what it contains. A vinyl banner stretches across my parents' Tudor-style facade. Bold red letters against white. Congratulations, Sam, for saving the family home. My coffee cup hits the hardwood with a crash. Hot liquid splashes my bare feet, but I barely register the burn. My lungs compress as if squeezed by invisible hands. 4 years, I whisper to the empty room. $84,000. I sink to the floor, ceramic shards pressing into my palms. Not from weakness this time. From rage so pure it requires anchoring to the physical world. They've erased me. Again. But worse, they've rewritten history entirely. When my breathing steadies, I retrieve my laptop and open my banking app. 4 years of statements. 4 years of transfer confirmations. Texts from Mom with variations of just this once and we'll pay you back soon. I find the email folder labeled family and extract every desperate plea. Dad's business failures. Mom's medical bills that insurance inexplicably rejected. The roof, the plumbing. The property taxes they forgot were due. The printer hums as I create a paper trail of their deception. While it works, I forward each piece of evidence to my personal email, then to a separate account I've created solely for this purpose. Digital receipts of years of manipulation. My phone rings. Sam's name flashes on the screen. Have you seen it? She asks without preamble. The banner? Yes. Kylie, I swear I had nothing to do with this. They told everyone at church that I've been making their mortgage payments since you abandoned them. I laugh, a hollow sound that bounces off the walls of my expensive condo. Of course they did. There's more, Sam continues, her voice dropping. They're hosting a family appreciation dinner next weekend, to honor my sacrifice. The formal invitation arrived in my email that afternoon. Cream-colored electronic stationery with flowing script. Join us in celebrating Samantha's selfless dedication to family values. Mom's voicemail follows. We hope you can set aside our differences to celebrate your sister. Family should support each other in times of recognition. Family should support each other in times of recognition. I trace my finger over the date. Next Saturday. I could book a flight. I should book a flight. I dial Jessica, my former coworker who first helped me see the patterns. They're crediting Sam with paying their mortgage. I tell her, my voice surprisingly steady. They're throwing her a party for something I did for 4 years. Jessica's silence speaks volumes before she responds. What are you going to do? I'm going to Denver. To confront them? No, I say, clicking open my laptop. To tell the truth. Saturday evening, I stand on the familiar porch. Inside, voices mingle with classical music. Dad's carefully curated playlist of impressiveness. I'm wearing a tailored charcoal suit that cost more than I would have spent on 3 months of clothes in my old life. Power armor. The folder under my arm contains every record, printed in duplicate. My laptop bag holds a flash drive with a presentation I've prepared with meticulous detail. Sam opens the door before I knock. "You came," she whispers, eyes wide. "Did you think I wouldn't?" She steps aside, revealing the living room transformed for the occasion. Flowers I know they can't afford, catering from the expensive place downtown. A projector screen displaying a slideshow titled, "The Anderson Family Legacy of Support." My mother spots me first. Her champagne glass halts midway to her lips. "Kylie, what a surprise." Her voice carries that artificial brightness reserved for uncomfortable public situations. "We weren't sure if you'd make it, with your busy new life." Dad turns, his practiced smile faltering when he sees my expression. "Pumpkin, come in, come in. We're just about to toast your sister's incredible generosity." The room falls quiet as I walk toward the projector. Aunts, uncles, cousins, church friends, all watching as I set down my folder on the side table. "May I add something to the presentation?" I ask, my voice carrying across the silent room. Dad hesitates, then nods with the confidence of someone who believes they control the narrative. Of course, of course. Our younger daughter wants to honor her sister too, how wonderful." I connect my laptop to the projector cable, replacing their slideshow with my own. The title slide appears. 48 months, $84,000, Kylie. "What's this?" Mom asks, her voice sharp. "The truth," I answered simply. The first slide displays a spreadsheet. Dates, amounts, account numbers partially redacted. Transaction descriptions that tell their own story. Emergency transfer to parents. Mortgage payment. Property tax payment. Insurance premium. "I don't think this is appropriate dinner conversation." Mom interjects, moving toward the projector. "Neither is lying to your entire social circle." I counter, clicking to the next slide. Text messages appear, enlarged for everyone to see. "Mom, Kylie, we're desperate. Just this once. The bank is threatening foreclosure. Mom, your father's business will recover soon. Just help us through this month. Mom, family comes first, always. We do the same for you." Murmurs ripple through the gathered guests. Aunt Martha's hand covers her mouth. Uncle Pete shifts uncomfortably in his seat. "You're publicly humiliating us," Dad hisses, his face flushed crimson. I meet his gaze steadily. "If the truth embarrasses you, that is not my fault." The next slide contrasts Dad's business expense reports with their credit card statements, golf club memberships, weekend getaways, restaurant bills exceeding what I spent on groceries in a month. "Stop this immediately," Mom demands, her voice cracking. But I continue, slide by slide, building the case that I've subsidized their lifestyle while they showcased Sam as the successful daughter and dismissed my contributions. Sam stands frozen, horror dawning on her face as she comprehends the scale of deception, not just against me, but against her too, used as their golden child while I was used as their ATM. When the final slide appears, the banner photo with the truth superimposed across it, the room has fallen into stunned silence. $84,000. I say quietly. My down payment, my MBA, my future. Aunt Judith, Dad's eldest sister, rises slowly from her seat by the fireplace. For a moment, I think she'll defend them, she always has. Instead, she begins to applaud. Slow, deliberate claps that echo in the silence. "It's about time someone told the truth in this family," she says, her voice carrying the weight of decades. Two of my cousins nod, recognition in their eyes. The family patterns aren't new, just finally exposed. Mom attempts one last deflection. "Family matters should stay private, Kylie. This is inappropriate." "Private like the banner on your house?" I ask. Sam moves then, crossing the room to stand beside me. She doesn't speak, doesn't need to. Her presence next to me says everything. For the first time in our lives, we face our parents as a united front, the golden child and the invisible one, standing together in truth. And in that moment, I feel the last chains of obligation finally break free. 6 months after the confrontation, the Seattle morning light streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating my face as I stir honey into my tea. Sam sits across from me at the corner cafe, her lawyer posture relaxed for once, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail instead of her usual perfect blowout. "I still can't believe they showed up here with papers to add your name to the deed," Sam says, shaking her head. "After everything." I smile, watching ferry boats cross Elliott Bay. Their version of an apology, I suppose. And you turned it down. Not a question, but a statement of respect. I already own my own home. I tell her, gesturing toward the gleaming high-rise visible from our window. What I need is respect, not a name on paper. 6 months since the truth shattered our family's foundation. 6 months of rebuilding not what was, but something new. Something honest. My phone buzzes with an industry newsletter notification. Anderson Team wins Innovation Award for Compliance Solution. My team, my leadership. Sam notices my smile. Another win? I show her the screen. Vice President sounds good before my name, doesn't it? Better than mortgage payer in secret. She reaches across the table, squeezes my hand. You're speaking at that finance conference next month, right? Ethical Leadership Panel. I laugh at the irony. Apparently standing up to financial exploitation qualifies me as an expert. Later that evening, I lace up hiking boots as 3 friends wait by the door. No elaborate excuses about tight budgets. No calculating whether I can afford gas. Just 4 women heading to Mount Rainier because the wildflowers are blooming. Rachel asked about you again, Tina says as we drive, wiggling her eyebrows suggestively. The architect? Heat crawls up my neck that has nothing to do with embarrassment and everything to do with possibility. Dating without financial anxiety feels like breathing new air. On Tuesday, I stood before 20 young women at the community center's financial literacy workshop. Boundaries aren't selfish. I tell them, my voice steady with conviction earned through fire. They're the foundation of authentic relationships. A girl in the back row asks, but what if it's family? Especially then, I answered, meeting her eyes directly. When Sam returns in August, we cook pasta in my kitchen, tomato sauce bubbling as Frank Sinatra plays. Mom would have hovered, critiquing our technique. Tonight, there's only laughter as Sam spills wine on my countertop. Remember when Mom would measure the pasta portions? Sam asks, twirling noodles onto her fork. 2 ounces for you, 3 for Dad, 1 for me because actresses need to stay slim. And now look at us. I gesture to our heaping plates, rebels with carbs. We talk late into the night, about childhood patterns we never questioned, about adult choices we're now making differently. I've been thinking about taking a real vacation, Sam says, not a networking opportunity disguised as relaxation, just joy. Where would you go? I ask. She corrects. Where would we go? Sisters only. My throat tightens unexpectedly. A year later, I opened a new account, seed money for my niece's education. Not from obligation, but from choice. At the community center, my financial boundaries workshop has doubled in size. Setting limits isn't about rejecting others, I explain. It's about honoring yourself enough to bring your whole, healthy self to relationships. In my journal, I write, Year 1 of my authentic life at the top of a fresh page. Below it, not accomplishments or goals, but truths. That worth isn't measured in sacrifice. That love without respect is just used. That starting over at 30 isn't failure, it's courage. Evening finds me on my balcony, watching sunset paint the Olympic mountains gold, then purple, then blue. No phone buzzing with financial emergencies. No mental calculations of what remains in my account. Just this moment. Just me. Finally home in my own life.